vibrant looking boy didn't know his time on earth was going to be so short until 6 months later when he was left on the cold towels, starving to death without his mother. The story all started in 2020 December when this woman, Mrs. Tina, and her husband went to the eastern part of Nigeria to spend the celebrations, the Christmas and everything. And then they decided that we're going to get a housemaid, a young, vibrant girl who is going to help keep the house, maintain the house while we're out for our businesses every day. So they ended up getting 17-year-old Faith, who was, with her guardian or her family members, after Mrs. Tina and her husband above persuaded Faith's parents or her guardians with the benefits of what they would offer for their child being with them in Lagos State of Nigeria, which is usually believed to be either education, monthly payments, and some other stipends to make the contract both mutual. The family agreed, and then Faith went with Miss Tina and her husband to Lagos State. Now bear it in mind that Mrs. Tina and her husband, whose name was not mentioned during this case, didn't know that Faith was pregnant, including Faith herself. So of course, it should be one of those, hormonal young teenagers dating, and then she got pregnant without knowing. Heartbreakingly, from the time of discovery that she was pregnant to the time that she gave birth to this boy, Chidubem, Faith was being maltreated by her host family. It was said that they maltreated her in the busy city of Lagos to the point of even sending a nursing teenage mother on an errand by 2 a.m. in Lagos State. Lagos State, that you could be kidnapped and killed in broad daylight. They sent her on an errand by 2 a.m. And when Faith arrived from the errand they sent her by 2 a.m. to achieve, after completing it, you wouldn't believe what Mrs. Tina's husband did to Faith at 2 a.m. for the continuation.
Now, of course, by whatever time she was done with the errand they sent her on, she arrived back to the house at that midnight time. But when she was about getting into the house, the husband of her madam, Mrs. Tina, decided to stop her from entering into the house. She was in fact told that she was not going to leave and sleep in that house anymore. And then Mrs. Tina's husband decided to go back into the house, get a teenage mother's clothing and belongings, and threw it all out of the house, forgetting one major part of the teenage mother, her son. But did he forget to actually give Faith her son? No, he did not forget. It was something that was planned between the husband and the wife to send the girl out without her son. So she took it like the normal thing. Okay, I've offended them one way or the other. I'll come back in the morning and plead my case and see that we work it out together. But in the morning when she got back to the house, she noticed that the house was locked and that she could not make use of her own key because the padlock had been changed by Mrs. Tina and her husband. What was even more shocking was the fact that Faith could see her son through the window crying. So she ran to the neighbors and told them what had happened. And the neighbors in turn called Mrs. Tina to come open the door and give the mother her son who was crying, but she refused.
Mrs. Tina ended the call, and when she got back home, obviously confronted by the neighbors, she was, in whatever vile method, said that Faith was even owing me a large sum of money, and if she's not done paying that money, I'm not giving her her child. How much did she claim that Faith was owing her? She said that Faith was owing her 5 million naira, that is over $10,000. How? And then Faith, knowing that there was nothing else she could do, Faith decided to go out on the streets to hustle and pay the money just to get back her son. Watch out for part 3. No matter how much you try, the love of a mother for her child can never be explained by science or by mere thought. Nothing yet can explain that. And that is why Faith decided to go hustle on the streets of Lagos in order to pay the alleged fictitious 5 million naira, around $10,000, in order to save and get back her own child. For how long this took, at a certain point, the child was seen to be dying. It is too painful to behold. It is obvious that Mrs. Tina and her husband began starving this child while his mother was hustling on the streets of Lagos to pay a ransom she didn't owe. Faith confirmed that she was owing Mrs. Tina some money that could include money for childbirth, a whole lot of other things that she was supposed to pay, but she said it was around 200,000 naira and not 5 million. Now, what would a 17-year-old or at the time 18-year-old teenage mother, be able to do in Lagos to be able to pay that sum of money in a short time to be able to save her child? On December the 17th, 2021, 1 year after being taken from her family from the eastern part of Nigeria to Lagos, her beautiful 6-month-old son, this is what was remaining of him, and he died at 9 p.m. 9 p.m., a fellow human being, a woman, decided to starve the baby of another woman. To this point, he was malnourished, kept on towels, because the neighbors told Faith that at some point they see her son crying on the towels of the house locked up by Mrs. Tina and her husband. Sadly, he died, and then justice needed to be served. That was when Child Protection Services were involved, and seeing that this boy was already dying, Mrs. Tina and her husband dumped him. Yes, they dumped him with the neighbors for Faith. Faith took the baby, who was already dying, rushed him to the hospital where the doctors could not save him. And when they were asked what could be the cause of this child's death, they said it was malnourishment, because he began having even bloody patches on his skin. Was it mosquitoes? Was it bugs or whatever? For a woman who could let a teenage girl give birth in her house and owe her and pay the sum of 200,000 naira to foot the bills, should be able to cater for a 6-month-old child. So there is no question around that. Even further investigation into the story led to the point where Faith revealed that she reported the initial maltreatment and issues with her staying with Mrs. Faith and her husband to the police, but the police didn't take it seriously. So at some point, it shouldn't have gotten to this, but here we are. Now, of course, even further investigation has led to the fact that Mrs. Faith and her husband have been in the police station since the case was related to them, and that we're expecting an autopsy to reveal. I honestly cannot explain how anyone, be it a man or a woman, would sit day in, day out and watch a child look from this to this and not feed him. And there was no mention that Mrs. Faith and her husband had a child. Maybe this was the reason. People like this should be in dungeons, not where animals are. They should be in dungeons, the inner parts of jails. She should be tried in a court and sent to jail. That's just it, because it is not in any way acceptable. Why didn't she and her husband take the girl back to the village when they discovered that she was pregnant? Why didn't they take her back to the village, or take the child to the village, or give Child Protection Services the child whilst Faith would hustle and pay them back? This is unacceptable. I was literally almost choking my words in the previous video because I was getting emotional to see how malnourished that child is. But of course, we should all be careful with whom we leave or send our kids to, that nonsense like this should not happen.